Few places evoke as much dread and fascination as hospitals, those sterile, labyrinthine institutions where life and death converge in an endless dance. Yet among the countless hospitals scattered across America, one stands out as a beacon of terror, its halls echoing with whispers of pain, betrayal, and the supernatural. Welcome back to our haunted storytelling series, where we peel back the veil of the unknown, and today, we delve into Episode 3, The Most Haunted Hospital in America. This hospital is no ordinary building. It is a monument to human suffering, its walls imbued with decades, if not centuries, of sorrow. Once a sanctuary for healing, it has become a prison for tormented souls who refuse to move on. From shadowy figures roaming abandoned wards to disembodied voices calling out in the dead of night, this institution embodies the darkest corners of our collective fears. Its reputation precedes it, drawing thrill-seekers, paranormal investigators, and skeptics alike, all eager to confront the mysteries that lie within. In this episode, we will journey deep into the heart of this forsaken place, unraveling its tragic history and uncovering the chilling tales of those who have dared to cross its threshold. We'll explore first-hand accounts from former staff members who witnessed phenomena they cannot explain, examine evidence collected by paranormal teams brave enough to spend nights within its decaying halls, and piece together the fragments of a past steeped in tragedy and despair. Each room, each corridor, holds secrets that defy logic, a tapestry woven with the threads of lives interrupted and spirits unquiet. As you settle in for this harrowing exploration, prepare yourself for an odyssey into the macabre. This isn't just another ghost story, it's a descent into a realm where reality blurs, and the line between the living and the dead becomes disturbingly thin. So dim the lights, keep your ears sharp, and let us guide you through the haunting legacy of America's most infamous hospital. Are you ready to face what lies beyond the veil? The Shadowed Origins, a hospital built on suffering before it became a haven for the restless dead. This hospital was conceived as a beacon of hope, a place where modern medicine could triumph over illness and injury. Established in the late 19th century during a time when diseases like tuberculosis and influenza ravaged communities across America, the facility opened its doors with great fanfare. Nestled on the outskirts of a small town surrounded by dense forests, it promised fresh air, sunlight therapy, and cutting-edge treatments for those afflicted with respiratory ailments. At first glance, it seemed idyllic, sprawling lawns dotted with flower gardens, grand brick buildings crowned with gabled roofs, and large windows designed to let in natural light. Yet beneath its polished exterior lay seeds of darkness that would eventually grow unchecked. The hospital's early years were marked by overcrowding and understaffing, conditions exacerbated by the influx of patients during wartime epidemics. Records show that beds were often shared between 2 or more individuals, while makeshift tents served as overflow wards during peak seasons. Medical practices at the time leaned heavily on experimental procedures, some bordering on barbaric. Lobotomies, electroshock therapy, and forced isolation were common treatments, prescribed not only for physical ailments but also for mental health issues deemed untreatable. Patients suffering from depression, anxiety, or post-traumatic stress disorder were frequently misdiagnosed and subjected to harrowing interventions that left them physically scarred and emotionally shattered. It wasn't long before rumors began circulating about unethical experiments conducted under the guise of medical research. Former staff members have spoken in hushed tones about secret labs hidden deep within the hospital's labyrinthine basement, where doctors tested dubious drugs and surgical techniques without proper consent. One particularly disturbing account involves a group of children admitted for minor illnesses who mysteriously disappeared after being transferred to a restricted wing. Their families never received closure. Official reports claimed they had succumbed to complications, yet no death certificates were issued, and no bodies were ever returned for burial. Tragedy struck repeatedly throughout the hospital's operational years. Fires broke out multiple times due to faulty wiring and inadequate safety measures, claiming dozens of lives. In one devastating incident in 1923, an entire ward burned to the ground overnight, trapping patients inside. Survivors recalled hearing screams so piercing they echoed through the surrounding woods for days afterward. Other accidents included boiler explosions, elevator malfunctions, and structural collapses, all contributing to a mounting body count that locals whispered about in fearful tones. But perhaps the darkest chapter in the hospital's history revolves around allegations of patient abuse. Nurses and orderlies have come forward over the years with chilling testimonials of neglect, cruelty, and even murder. Patients too weak to defend themselves were allegedly starved, beaten, or locked away in solitary confinement for extended periods. Those who dared to speak out faced retaliation, often disappearing shortly thereafter. One nurse recounted finding cryptic messages scrawled on the walls of an abandoned wing. "Help me, they're coming," and "I'm sorry." She quit her job the next day, unable to shake the feeling that she was being watched. By the mid-20th century, public outcry over the hospital's practices led to investigations by state authorities. What they uncovered was horrifying: rooms filled with rusted restraints, medical equipment encrusted with dried blood, and files documenting cases of systemic corruption. The facility was shut down in 1967, leaving behind a shell of a once promising institution. However, closing its doors did little to silence the horrors that had unfolded within. Locals reported seeing strange lights flickering in the upper windows long after the power had been cut off. Others claimed to hear moans and wails drifting through the trees late at night. Over time, the abandoned hospital became synonymous with fear, a place where the living dared not tread and the dead refused to leave. Today, standing amidst the ruins of this once thriving medical center, one cannot help but feel the weight of its tragic past. Every cracked tile, every peeling wall, tells a story of suffering endured and lives lost. As we move deeper into our investigation, remember that the ghosts haunting these halls are not mere figments of imagination. They are echoes of real people whose pain continues to reverberate through time. And if you listen closely, you may just hear their pleas for justice still lingering in the shadows. Ward 3A, where shadows stalk and whispers echo among the countless chilling stories tied to America's most haunted hospital, none evoke as much dread as those centered around Ward 3A. Known colloquially among former staff and paranormal enthusiasts as the Wailing Ward, this particular section of the second floor has become infamous for its relentless supernatural activity. According to historical records, Ward 3A housed patients suffering from severe mental illnesses, many of whom were subjected to inhumane treatments such as lobotomies and prolonged isolation. It is here that some of the hospital's darkest deeds were carried out, and where the spirits of its victims remain trapped, forever reliving their torment. One of the most harrowing accounts comes from Sarah Thompson, a retired nurse who worked at the hospital in the 1950s. In a trembling voice, she recounts how she was assigned to assist Dr. Harold Langston, a controversial figure known for his aggressive approach to treating psychiatric disorders. On her first night shift in Ward 3A, Sarah noticed something odd about room 312, a cramped, windowless space used to confine unruly patients. As she passed by, she heard faint sobbing emanating from behind the door. Assuming it was one of the patients, she entered cautiously, only to find the room empty. The crying continued, growing louder and more desperate, until it seemed to surround her. Panicked, Sarah fled the ward, refusing to return despite threats of disciplinary action. Sarah's experience is far from unique. Decades later, paranormal investigators armed with EVP, electronic voice phenomenon, recorders captured chilling audio evidence within the same room. Among the static-filled recordings are distinct phrases like, "Let me go," and "Why won't they stop?" delivered in anguished tones. One investigator described feeling an overwhelming sense of claustrophobia while standing near the bed frame, as though invisible hands were pressing down on him. Another team member reported seeing shadowy figures darting across the corners of her vision, always just out of reach. The spectral presence in Ward 3A isn't limited to auditory phenomena or fleeting glimpses. Visitors have described encountering full-bodied apparitions, their translucent forms clad in tattered hospital gowns. One of the most frequently cited entities is believed to be a young woman named Emily Carter, a patient admitted in the 1940s after attempting suicide following the loss of her child. Witnesses claim to see her wandering the corridor outside room 312, her hollow eyes fixed on some unseen point in the distance. Occasionally, she approaches passers-by, extending a trembling hand before vanishing without explanation. Those who have interacted with her report feeling an icy chill and smelling the faint scent of antiseptic, as though she carries remnants of her final days with her. Perhaps the most unsettling feature of Ward 3A is the recurring sound of footsteps pacing endlessly along its tiled floors. Staff members working night shifts prior to the hospital's closure swore they could hear heavy boots stomping up and down the hallway, accompanied by the jangle of keys and muffled curses. Attempts to locate the source invariably failed, as the noise seemed to originate from multiple directions simultaneously. Modern-day explorers recount similar experiences, noting that the footsteps grow louder and more frantic the closer one ventures to room 312. Some theorize that these phantom steps belong to security guards tasked with monitoring the ward, doomed to patrol its halls for eternity. Adding to the ward's sinister reputation are the numerous reports of objects moving independently. During one investigation, a flashlight inexplicably rolled off a table and landed directly at the feet of a startled participant. Another group discovered a wheelchair positioned against a closed door moments after leaving it parked several feet away. These incidents, coupled with sudden drops in temperature and inexplicable EMF spikes, suggest that Ward 3A harbors intelligent entities capable of interacting with the physical world. Despite, or perhaps because of, its terrifying reputation, Ward 3A remains a focal point for paranormal activity within the hospital. Its oppressive atmosphere draws thrill-seekers and skeptics alike, all eager to test their courage against the unknown. For those brave enough to venture inside, the promise of encountering one of its tormented spirits offers both fascination and terror. Yet, as each new visitor crosses its threshold, they must ask themselves, are they prepared to confront the horrors that lie within, or will they become another chapter in the ward's macabre legacy? The Forgotten Basement, a descent into darkness beneath the crumbling foundations of America's most haunted hospital, lies a realm shrouded in perpetual gloom, the Forgotten Basement. This subterranean labyrinth, rarely mentioned in official records and almost entirely inaccessible to the public, serves as a grim testament to the hospital's darkest secrets. Once home to clandestine experiments, makeshift morgues, and storage for discarded medical equipment, the basement now exists as a tomb of horrors, its air thick with decay and despair. Here, the boundaries between life and death blur, and the spirits of those who suffered unimaginable fates continue to roam, their anguish etched into every shadowy corner point. One of the most notorious areas of the basement is the dissection lab, a cold, sterile room where bodies were dissected under the guise of scientific inquiry. Former employees have whispered about unauthorized autopsies performed on patients who had not yet succumbed to their illnesses, their organs harvested for dubious research purposes. The walls of the lab are lined with rusted steel tables, some still bearing stains that refuse to fade, no matter how many years pass. Visitors to the basement report hearing the faint scrape of scalpels against bone, followed by guttural groans that seem to emanate from the very walls themselves. One investigator claimed to see a pale, translucent figure lying prone on one of the tables, its chest cavity splayed open as though mid-procedure, before it dissolved into thin air. Adjacent to the dissection lab lies the morgue, a chilling expanse of concrete and metal where the dead awaited identification or disposal. Rows of rusted drawers line the walls, their handles worn smooth by countless openings and closings. Paranormal teams exploring the space have captured EVP recordings of mournful voices pleading, "Find me," or "I'm still here." Thermal cameras reveal cold spots concentrated near certain drawers, suggesting the presence of residual energy tied to specific individuals. One particularly disturbing discovery involved the drawer that refused to close, despite repeated attempts by investigators. When they finally managed to force it shut, a blood-curdling scream echoed through the chamber, prompting the entire team to flee in terror. Further into the depths of the basement sits the boiler room, a cavernous space dominated by towering machinery now silent and covered in grime. This area earned infamy during the hospital's operational years due to a series of catastrophic boiler explosions that claimed numerous lives. Survivors spoke of infernos engulfing the lower levels, trapping workers and patients alike in a fiery hell. Today, those who dare to enter the boiler room describe feeling waves of intense heat wash over them, even though the boilers have long ceased functioning. Ghostly figures resembling scorched victims are said to wander aimlessly, their charred faces twisted in eternal agony. Some visitors swear they can smell smoke and hear the crackle of flames, as though the fires rage on in some parallel dimension. Another spine-chilling aspect of the basement is the network of tunnels connecting various sections of the hospital. Originally designed for transporting supplies and bodies discreetly, these narrow passageways have become breeding grounds for paranoia and dread. Explorers navigating the tunnels often report hearing footsteps trailing behind them, only to turn and find no one there. Others claim to see glowing eyes peering from the darkness, watching silently before vanishing without a sound. A particularly unnerving encounter occurred when a group of urban explorers became disoriented and found themselves walking in circles, unable to locate the exit. Panic set in as the temperature plummeted, and disembodied whispers urged them to stay with us. The basement also houses remnants of forgotten experiments, including cages and restraint devices that hint at the atrocities committed below ground. One alcove contains a collection of rusted iron chairs bolted to the floor, their armrests fitted with leather straps. Investigators believe these were used to restrain unwilling participants in unethical trials. Voices recorded in this area include fragmented phrases like, "No more tests," and "Please, I can't breathe," delivered in tones of sheer desperation. Some claim to feel invisible hands gripping their wrists or ankles, mimicking the sensation of being bound, while others report seeing shadowy figures strapped into the chairs, writhing in silent protest. Despite, or perhaps because of, its ominous reputation, the basement continues to draw curious souls eager to confront its malevolent energies. Urban explorers, paranormal investigators, and thrill-seekers descend into its bowels, armed with cameras, recording devices, and nerves of steel. Yet few emerge unscathed, their minds imprinted with visions and sensations too vivid to dismiss as mere imagination. As each new adventurer steps into the abyss, they must grapple with the knowledge that what awaits them may be more than they bargained for, a descent into madness, memory, and the unrelenting grip of the past. The surgeon's legacy, Dr. Evelyn Hargrove, and the phantom scalpel, few names evoke as much dread in the annals of America's most haunted hospital as Dr. Evelyn Hargrove. A brilliant yet deeply troubled physician, Hargrove rose to prominence in the 1930s as a pioneer of experimental surgical techniques. Her groundbreaking work initially garnered praise, but her insatiable ambition and disregard for ethical boundaries soon cast a shadow over her achievements. By the time her reign of terror ended, she had left behind a legacy of pain, betrayal, and spectral vengeance that continues to haunt the hospital's operating theaters to this day. Dr. Hargrove's career began with promise. Appointed head surgeon at the age of 32, she quickly gained a reputation for her innovative approaches to treating complex conditions. However, her methods grew increasingly radical, pushing the limits of accepted medical practice. Colleagues whispered about unauthorized procedures performed under the guise of routine surgeries, including organ removals without patient consent and invasive brain operations intended to cure mental illnesses. Rumors swirled that Hargrove kept meticulous journals detailing her experiments, though these documents mysteriously vanished after her death, fueling speculation about the true extent of her transgressions. One of the most chilling aspects of Hargrove's story is her alleged obsession with perfection. Former nurses recall her scrutinizing patients' charts late into the night, muttering cryptic phrases like "fix it" and "make them whole again." Those who questioned her motives or challenged her authority often found themselves reassigned to less desirable positions, or worse, disappeared altogether. One particularly disturbing account involves a young orderly who stumbled upon a locked cabinet in Hargrove's office. Peering through the keyhole, he claimed to see rows of glass jars containing preserved organs, each labeled with a patient's name. He never spoke of it again, resigning abruptly shortly thereafter. Hargrove's downfall came in 1948, when a fire swept through the surgical wing, killing several staff members and patients. While the official report blamed faulty wiring, survivors whispered of seeing Hargrove fleeing the scene moments before the blaze erupted. Some even suggested she deliberately set the fire to cover up evidence of her crimes. Whatever the truth, Hargrove vanished without a trace, leaving behind only unanswered questions and a trail of destruction. Months later, Her body was discovered in a remote section of the hospital basement, slumped against a rusted gurney. Cause of death was ruled a self-inflicted stab wound to the abdomen, though the scalpel clutched in her hand bore no fingerprints. Since then, sightings of Dr. Hargrove's ghost have become a staple of the hospital's haunted lore. Witnesses describe a tall, gaunt figure clad in a blood-stained surgical gown, her face obscured by a surgical mask. She is often seen prowling the operating rooms, her movements deliberate and mechanical, as though still performing phantom surgeries. One nurse working a late shift swore she felt icy breath on her neck, followed by the sensation of cold metal grazing her skin. Turning around, she saw Hargrove standing inches away, her eyes gleaming with manic intensity before she vanished into thin air. Paranormal investigators exploring the surgical wing have captured compelling evidence of Hargrove's lingering presence. Thermal imaging cameras reveal significant temperature drops near operating tables, accompanied by inexplicable EMF spikes. Audio recordings picked up during overnight sessions include faint whispers chanting medical terms like incision and clamp, interspersed with agonized cries. Perhaps the most disturbing discovery came when a team member accidentally activated an old overhead light fixture, illuminating the room just long enough to reveal a transparent figure hovering above the operating table, scalpel poised midair. Modern-day encounters with Hargrove's spirit suggest her obsession with perfection endures beyond the grave. Visitors have reported hearing the sound of surgical instruments clinking together, followed by the unmistakable squelch of flesh being cut. Some claim to see shadowy appendages extending from the ceiling, manipulating invisible tools with surgical precision. Others describe waking up in nearby recovery rooms to find their skin marked with faint red lines, as though traced by a phantom scalpel. One particularly harrowing account involves a maintenance worker who swore he saw his own reflection in a stainless steel tray, only to realize the image staring back at him was missing vital organs. Despite, or perhaps because of, her malevolent reputation, Dr. Evelyn Hargrove remains one of the hospital's most active spirits. Her presence looms large over the surgical wing, a constant reminder of the horrors inflicted in pursuit of flawed ideals. For those brave enough to step inside, the possibility of encountering her restless spirit adds an element of both fascination and dread. Yet, as each new visitor crosses the threshold, they must ask themselves, are they prepared to face the consequences of Hargrove's hubris? Or will they become another victim of her unrelenting quest for perfection? The patient logs, unraveling lives lost and lingering spirits. To truly understand the depth of America's most haunted hospital's spectral legacy, one must delve into the meticulously maintained patient logs. An archive of suffering, survival, and untimely deaths. These records, yellowed with age and brittle to the touch, serve as a grim catalog of the human toll exacted within its walls. Each entry tells a story, not just of medical treatment but of lives irrevocably altered by illness, trauma, and the often brutal interventions of the era. Through these logs, we glimpse the faces behind the hauntings, individuals whose spirits refuse to rest, bound to the hospital by unresolved grief, pain, or injustice. One of the most poignant entries belongs to Margaret Ellis, a 27-year-old schoolteacher admitted in 1925 for treatment of tuberculosis. According to her file, Margaret exhibited remarkable resilience during her initial months at the hospital, participating in group activities and maintaining correspondence with family. However, her condition deteriorated rapidly after being transferred to Ward 3A for experimental therapy. Notes from attending physicians describe increasingly erratic behavior, culminating in an attempted escape thwarted by security personnel. Margaret's final log entry reads simply, "Patient deceased under suspicious circumstances. No cause of death is listed, and no autopsy report exists." Visitors to Ward 3A claim to see a young woman in a faded dress wandering the halls, clutching a stack of letters. Many believe this apparition to be Margaret, forever searching for closure denied her in life. Another haunting tale emerges from the case of James O'Connell, a World War I veteran suffering from severe shell shock. Admitted in 1922, James underwent multiple rounds of electroshock therapy aimed at curing his debilitating nightmares and flashbacks. His log details progressive deterioration, with entries noting episodes of violent outbursts and self-harm. In 1924, James was placed in solitary confinement following an altercation with staff. Days later, he was found dead, having apparently hanged himself with a makeshift noose fashioned from torn bed linens. Paranormal investigators exploring the basement isolation cells report hearing faint sobs accompanied by rhythmic tapping, echoes of James's futile attempts to signal for help. Others have spotted a shadowy figure pounding on the walls, its silhouette distorted by flickering lantern light. Equally chilling is the story of Eliza Thompson, a pregnant teenager admitted in 1938 after collapsing at a local church picnic. Diagnosed with preeclampsia, Eliza was rushed into emergency surgery to save both her life and that of her unborn child. Tragically, neither survived the procedure. Her log reveals discrepancies in the surgical notes, leading some to speculate foul play. Contemporary witnesses describe hearing the soft cooing of an infant near the maternity ward, followed by the sound of hurried footsteps retreating into silence. Others have spotted a young woman cradling a bundle wrapped in white cloth, her tear-streaked face illuminated by moonlight streaming through cracked windows. Many interpret these manifestations as Eliza's plea for acknowledgement of the life stolen from her. Perhaps the most enigmatic figure chronicled in the logs is Thomas Greaves, a traveling salesman admitted in 1946 for what appeared to be routine appendicitis. His operation went smoothly, but he developed complications post-surgery, lapsing into a coma from which he never awoke. Strangely, his body disappeared from the morgue shortly after pronouncement of death, sparking rumors of body snatching. Decades later, maintenance workers restoring the hospital's basement stumbled upon a hidden alcove containing skeletal remains identified as Thomas's. Since then, reports of ghostly encounters have surged, with visitors describing feelings of being watched and sudden drops in temperature. One particularly unnerving account involves a janitor who swore he saw a man in a vintage suit standing motionless in the shadows, his gaze fixed intently on the newly exposed alcove. These stories represent only a fraction of the tragedies documented in the patient logs, each one a thread in the intricate tapestry of the hospital's haunted history. Together, they paint a portrait of suffering endured and lives extinguished prematurely, underscoring the profound impact of institutional negligence and abuse. As we sift through these records, we honor the memories of those lost, giving voice to the voiceless and ensuring their legacies endure. For within the pages of the patient logs lies not just evidence of the supernatural, but a powerful reminder of humanity's capacity for both cruelty and compassion, and the indelible marks left behind by both. As we bring this chilling journey through America's most haunted hospital to a close, one thing becomes abundantly clear: the spirits of the past refuse to be silenced. Each creaking floorboard, each whispered name, and each fleeting shadow serves as a testament to lives lived, lost, and lingering in the spaces we dare to call haunted. These stories are more than mere campfire tales. They are fragments of history, stitched together by human emotion, tragedy, and the relentless passage of time. They remind us that the line between the living and the dead is far thinner than we might believe, and that sometimes, the most terrifying truths lie just beyond the veil. But why stop here? If these accounts have stirred something within you, a spark of curiosity, a shiver of excitement, I urge you to take the next step. Visit one of America's haunted hospitals yourself. Walk the same halls where spirits are said to roam, stand in the rooms where history's echoes reverberate, and let the unknown brush against your senses. Whether you're a skeptic seeking proof or a believer eager to commune with the other side, these forsaken institutions offer an unparalleled opportunity to confront the mysteries that lie just beyond comprehension. There's nothing quite like experiencing the weight of decades-old despair firsthand, feeling the chill of a presence that defies explanation, or hearing the faint strains of voices from another time. And when you return, share your story. Did you feel the icy touch of a ghostly hand? Hear the faint tap of footsteps in an empty corridor? Or perhaps nothing happened at all. But isn't that silence just as intriguing? Your experiences add to the rich tapestry of lore surrounding these haunted hospitals, ensuring their legacies endure for generations to come. Share your findings with fellow enthusiasts, document your journey, and keep the conversation alive. After all, every whisper contributes to the symphony of the supernatural. Until then, keep your lanterns lit, and your courage steady. The spirits are waiting.